Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition. This weekend is a busy weekend, and of course, like I mentioned, we'll take a look at the second edition of the Niger Delta Games that gets underway this weekend in Benin City. And the very big one, 18 Senegalese and 1 French national sentenced to 1 year jail and fines, several fines for their in the mayhem that took place at African Cup of Nations final just concluded in Morocco. We'll take a look at that and see the severity of the offense and why no Moroccan has been involved in that one as well. With me to look at this and other sporting stories this weekend is Kingsley Emmanuel. Nice to have you, Kingsley.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nice to be here this weekend.
Okay, let's get started. Of course, we start from the biggest one, which is what is putting the entire Niger Delta, 9 states of the Niger Delta, into a state of glow. The games is here. Benin City, only a few hours ago, we saw the opening ceremony that was very, very colorful. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu urged the organizers to invest in youths and women. How did you see the opening ceremony at the Samuel Saibovo Stadium in Benin City?
It was very, very colorful, of course, just like you described it down there. We saw, the different states, coming with their different attire, and of course, that makes it very, very, colorful and glamorous, just like we saw in the last edition down there in Akwa Ibom States. It was really, really an impressive one. And it didn't just end at that. We saw top Nigerian musicians, coming to perform, the likes of, Eben, the gospel singer, the likes of Patoranki, was as well as many others, other entertainers, right here in Nigeria. It was something very, very cheering, and I tell you, if we can continue putting up something like this, it would be nice, just to see how to catch, of course, the young ones and be able to project them, to the world. So it was really, of course, a very, very colorful, opening ceremony. I think Edo State really, really had a very huge plan for this one.
Edo State have a huge plan for 3,000 athletes and plans to ensure that they participate fully in 17 sports disciplines across within the period of 1 week that they will host this championship. But still talking about the opening ceremony and its color, the governor of the state, Wevorebo, of course, put out what looks like a tantalizing largesse for the winners of this tournament, of this games. Wow, 20 million naira for the first place states. Then it graduated down to 10 and 5 for second and the third place. It's never happened before at the games.
Yeah, never happened before at the games. 20 million naira is really, of course, a huge amount of money for the winner, for this particular edition of the Niger Delta.
This is coming from the whole state, the Edo State government.
Coming from the Edo State government, and I think for me, it's really a good gesture. It really shows that, of course, they are really in support, for the growth of sports, in the state. And you talk about Edo State, yes, they've been very impressive when it comes to sports development. You take a look at how they've also, how far they've gone in terms of developing even football. You talk about Bender Insurance. They've been doing so well, of course, in the Nigerian Premier Football League, and no other in terms of other areas of sport as well. They've been doing so well, and that's when it comes to competition like this. At least you always see those states maybe in the top 5. At the end of the day, this show how the government actually takes sports and putting up such a huge amount of money. I think it will go a long way in motivating these athletes and the states coming at this point in time to go to see how far they can grab, of course, a lot of medals to come out top. At the end of the day, 20 million is quite a huge amount of money that can stir up a lot of motivation in these athletes.
Minister of State for Sports, Eno, was at the opening ceremony. He did represent the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What message did he bring to the people of the Niger Delta for this 1 week competition?
I think if you look at it so far, was buttressing that the president talk about Ahmed Bola Tinubu, of course, has really been much particular about sport development. And if you look at it, it's been very fantastic, especially with Shehu Diko coming in as the chairman of the National Sport Commission. We've seen sport, taken to another level when it has to do with, of course, growth. In as much as he's also looking forward to see how to make sport a money-spinning venture, in the economy. He's also looking at catching, young ones, at this point in time to see how they can replace the ones we already have. You talk about the likes of Toby and Musa, and you talk about the likes of, Aruna Quadri and the rest of them. These are athletes that in the next 5 years to 6 years to come, they might not, of course, giving their very best, of course, on the track now, or probably to say on the court. So them young at this point in time will be able to give us a very good replacement, and at the end of the day, and that's what the president, of course, has been doing, so far. And I believe maybe in the next 4 years or 5 years, definitely we'll be able to catch this athlete young, and also situate the economy or make sports, of course, a money-spinning venture as well in the country.
Sports definitely is a money-spinning venture, but you really have to cultivate it, and how do you do, especially discovering talents that will be around for at least a decade, 10 years, is it? And so the Niger Delta Games afford the opportunity of at least the zone in 9 states producing their own athletes that will represent Nigeria at the end of the day. Interesting games coming up in the next few days, and another 7 days or so at games there. I spoke with the director of sports, Rivers State, for of course, head of the contingent of Team Rivers at the competition, and her view, Obio Yingikabo, was that Rivers is going to win at least a medal in all of the 17 sports. The State Ministry of Sports, of course, did make provision for athletes to go into camp maybe for just about 3 days before heading to Benin City. Do you think the belief, or the target of the Director of Sports, Rivers State, Obio Yingikabo, will come to pass, that Rivers can win at least a medal in all of the 17 sports?
It can happen. I think in terms of their preparation, of course, it was a little bit intensive. I saw pictures of them, of course, in camp, training. So you talk about preparation. I think they really took it seriously this time around. So, but I believe, of course, they have everything it takes, to be able to rack up medals in the 17 sports, they will participate in at this point in time. But I so much have that belief that in athletics, of course, Team Rivers can rack up medal. In football as well, I believe they can also, try to rack up a medal. When it comes to basketball, of course, that's actually their terrain. I believe they will go all the way, of course, to be able to rack up medal in basketball. I'm really, really sure, of that aspect. In other areas as well, I think they can also make a mark. We'll just keep our fingers crossed. I think in the space of 7 days, of course, we'll see the results.
Yigabo, of course, if you know her, was one of Nigeria's brightest when it comes to swimming, and now she supervises the sports, sports in Rivers State. Do you think, talk about swimming, she will ensure that at least a medal comes from our own specialty, which is swimming?
Yes, definitely. Rivers should come back home with a medal when it comes to swimming. We can't have Rivers all around, coming from a River State, to say at this point in time you don't come back home with a medal in swimming. It actually doesn't sound well. So I believe in anything they do at this point in time, they should try as much as they can at least to come back with a medal when it has to do with swimming at the games.
Well, Team Rivers urging the athletes to ensure that there is a return of one medal at least in all of the 17 sports. Of course, multiple medals we expect in some of the sports, but at least one should come from where they have the least strength. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that, but still talking about sports, and as it concerns Nigeria, we told you earlier that the president was represented at the games opening ceremony a few hours ago by the Minister of Sports for states, They're talking about the president. He has approved the constitution of the board of the Nigerian Anti-Doping Agency. This is a major compliance with the milestone aimed at consolidating and ensuring that the status of Nigeria sports-wise is very clean. We've seen situations where Nigerian athletes have had to suffer from faulting the rules. Of course, the era of Blessing Okagbare and the rest is still reverberating with us. How can we stay clean from doping and falling short of anti-doping regulations? Can this directive by the president ensure that the signature of the president ensure that we don't run foul of anti-doping rules? Yeah,
definitely. In as much as, of course, this has been signed, I think it's actually the right step in the right direction. Going forward, we should be, of course, see our athletes go out there and be able to compete clean without having, being in a situation of taking any prohibited substance. This, of course, they've been waiting for this one for a very long time. I think this one has been on ground for about 20 years now. Thank God for Shehu Duku, who actually came on board to actually make the president, of course, see reasons, to sign this particular And I think for me, going forward, it will be a good record for us, because if at the end of the day, the board, of course, is working and everything that has to do with doping, of course, is actually being cleared, the athletes are properly tested, and they go out there to compete clean, and it will be able to take ourselves, from that red flag of the athletic integrity unit, when it comes to, of course, doping. If you look at it, Nigeria is one of those countries that whenever they go out for competition, their athletes are properly tested because of the previous record, of athletes, of course, who have been found wanting, when it comes to doping. But I think with this being signed at this point in time, definitely going forward, we should be ready to see our athletes, compete clean in any competition.
Talk about competing clean, and one major competition like we talked about earlier is the Niger Delta Games. Do you think at this level these rules must apply?
Definitely, of course. You will say that the athletes, of course, maybe they are very young, but you never can, probably might not involve themselves in taking anything that might enhance their performance, but you never can tell, at this point in time. So I think it should even start, from this level to even bring up the orientation, to this athlete. These things, of course, you're supposed to follow, as an athlete, looking forward to having a career, as it stands, so that they will, of course, come to proper understanding that these are things that they have to do, going forward.
Yeah, I think orientation matters here, because even as a young athlete, you need to have a database, with competition you're attending like this. Sometimes talking about these anti-doping rules, out of competition test is key, and you need to have a database of who you are going to test, at what point in time, and the athletes themselves must be aware that yes, they have to make themselves available for this out of competition test, and subsequently to how they conduct themselves, what they eat, especially. Some of them mistakenly will take something that has drug content that is against sporting regulations. So I think World Anti-Doping Body, WADA, definitely have these regulations all set out. Is for the Nigerian their counterparts to see how they can apply this to even competitions like with the Niger Delta Games.
Yeah, I think for me it's really going to be, of course, a huge one. It's actually a huge initiative, for these young ones, coming in at this point in time, and also an avenue where the National Institute of Sport should also come in, sensitize these young ones as well on what it means, of course, to be an athlete and how you can grow your career, and as an athlete, as well. I think for me, if these two bodies, of course, come in, talking about catching them young and grooming them, definitely in 5 to 10 years, we should be looking forward to see athletes who will compete for Nigeria clean, without, of course, being involved in any prohibited substance or trying to enhance, their performance as well. The other day, we hear from the National Sport Commission that they partnered with a particular company to start taking records or keeping data of our athletes. I just hope that, of course, will be actualized at the end of the day, so that our athletes will have a very good record of themselves. Sometimes you see this athlete, they come and perform, and then they go back. You don't even know anything about them. Their record are not even online. So I think with all of these measures on ground, our athletes will be able to have themselves, well groomed, and also have their data, and make sure, of course, they project themselves as athlete that could possibly put up something out there in future.
Away from anti-doping regulations as it concerns Nigeria, now let's go to basketball this weekend. And the biggest news in basketball this weekend is that African champions, the Tigers, yes, the female basketball side of Nigeria, will face women NBA counterpart Minnesota Lynx in a preseason game at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City in the United States of America in just about a few weeks from now, April 27 to be specific. Kinsley, the Tigers will have a couple of foreign-based basketball female players in the squad up against one of the best in the women basketball in the United States of America.
I think for me, this is a good one. Despite the crisis rocking the Nigerian Basketball Federation, I think they've even tried to put that aside to even create or arrange such a friendly game for the D Tigers of Nigeria. For me, it's really, really a good initiative. This team, of course, they are going to play one of the very top side, in the league. They've been very, very dominant, and I believe
dominant because they were winners in 2011, 2013, and 2015. I must say, not forgetting their last exploit, which was in 2017.
Definitely, and if you can contend with such a team, then of course you'll be able to boost your strengths, and of course see your lapses and be able to correct your errors going forward. And I think for me, it's really, really a good initiative. We take a look at the Nigerian D Tigers. They've been very fantastic, on that run at Wakama. I tell you, they've been putting up a very impressive performance. Last time at the Olympics, they were very, very, fantastic. They got down to the quarterfinal of the competition, won the last Afro-Basket Women Championship. So it's been a rosy one. So we don't look forward to see how far and how well they will perform against this side.
Talking about Rene Wakama reminds me that Rene, of course, is Nigeria's, female national team coach at the quality of that. She's won the medals with Nigeria. And but she's up against one of the best in female basketball, the women's national team coach of the United States of America, Coach Cherry Reef, is the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx. And it's like Wakama up against the best in female basketball.
I think for me, it's actually a good test, for her. At this point in time, you just need to improve. When you talk about improvement, you don't need to play a lower team or a team that is not on the same pedigree with you. You even have to play a team that is even above you at this point in time. So for me, it's a good test, for the team, looking at the fact that they've not been competitive for some time now. I think it's a good test for them to, of course, evaluate themselves in terms of strength, and performance. When you play with such a team, it really helps you, of course, to shape you. Even though you lose, that, of course, doesn't really matter. What happened or what really matters is the fact that how do you perform against such a team. So for me, I think it's a true test for Rene Wakama and the players.
Well, talking about the coaching that will be on showcase, Rene Wakama is the best in Africa, and of course, going by her record. And of course, it's competitive as well. She coaches in the United States of America. Now she's up against the best female coach in the basketball, of course, head coach of the United States team. But the D Tigers is not a bad team after all. Ranked 8th in the world and the FIBA rankings.
Yeah, it's really, really, of course, an impressive performance. I think that ranking came after they went all the way down to the quarterfinals of the Paris Olympic Games, came back and won the
No other team has been to that level from Africa before.
Male or female. No other team, of course, has gotten to that height, and that's why we have to give Rene Wakama accolades for what she has been able to do with these, girls. The way she has really transformed the team, has been very, very, phenomenal to say at this point in time. And we'll just look forward to see how far, she carries this team.
Just before we take a break, I will bring you just one more story, and of course, return to the other major issue for discussion, which has to do, with Confederation of African Football, Morocco and FIFA. Yes, there's been a very controversial sentencing coming from the Moroccan court authorities. Will this go down well with CAF, or will it go down well with FIFA? We'll take a look at that when we return from a break. But just before we go on a break, we'll bring in one more exciting story, and it's coming from boxing. We understand promoter Eddie Hearns, as a boxing promoter, has revealed that two-time heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua is targeting a return to the ring sometime in July this year. Just about a few months after surviving a very fatal car crash that led to the death of two of his confidants and, of course, trainers as well. Is the opinion of Eddie Hearns anything to go by, that Anthony Joshua will return as soon?
I think for me, definitely that's what it should be at this point in time. Joshua should look forward to see how to bounce back. I know what really happened to him was very devastating, was so emotional. It's going to take a whole lot of courage for you to be able to carry yourself away from that, particular memory of losing your two best friends. Really, of course, can weigh someone down. But as a strong man, as a fighter, we all expect that, of course, he tried to bounce back, from that particular one. So we look forward to see what comes up. Maybe by that July, possibly he might come back and see how to, of course, take a fight.
Talking about Anthony Joshua returning to the boxing ring, of course, before that very fatal accident, we saw that he had won a game just a few weeks before coming to Nigeria for holiday that ended the lives of two of his very close confidants. We just hope that he can return back. After all, he's had two tattoos on his body in respect or the honor of his two friends, and we just hope that that will charge him up for him to come back and win. After all, his friend wanted him to win, and so it would not be nice if he gets off the game. But then, in the months ahead, we'll know how soon Anthony Joshua will be coming back to boxing. Talking about coming back to boxing, one heavyweight boxer of the past is coming back as well. Tyson Fury has announced his retirement, if you remember, a couple of times, but this time he said he wants to return to the ring, and he will face Ashbek Mahmoudov at the Torian Hotspur Stadium on the 11th of April. Tyson Fury, what is he looking for after several retirements and coming back?
Maybe money to say at this point in time, all right? Because him coming back, of course, and staging up a fight, probably, of course, he's looking forward, of course, to get a lot of money at this point. But Fury...
You should remember that there's certain Alexander Usyk.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certain Alexander who actually beat him back-to-back last time before he retired. So now he's back. I think maybe to get a lot of money and maybe run back, of course, to retirement. We look forward to see how that bout, of course, will look like against Mahmoudov. It comes up on by April this year. And I tell you, Fury should be careful. There are some things, of course, he's trying to do at this point in time. He said he's going to train alone, that he's not going to get a trainer just to prepare himself, for this one. And for me, I think a little bit scary for him, for a man who has been away from the scene, coming back and you say you don't want to get a trainer to equip you for that bout. Mahmoudov is not just a baby boxer. He's been in the scene. He's fought about, I think, 22 fights, just 2 losses, and about 16 knockouts. So he's not a man that you should, you shouldn't have a better training for. So I don't know what he's trying to do, but if he gets beaten once again by Mahmoudov, I think probably that will be the end of his career.
Well, and Fury, we know him, one man who has retired and retired and come back several times. And what has it got to do with the fact that he's saying that he's coming back this time around has to do with the tragedy involving Anthony Joshua that inspired his comeback? How does that link itself? Because Anthony Joshua was involved in a car crash and 2 of his friends lost their life, that has inspired his coming back to the ring.
I wonder what kind of inspiration is that, because I don't know how Fury derived inspiration in coming back because of that, incident that happened to Anthony Joshua. But maybe it's just the normal Tyson Fury actually know how to be that loquacious, But for me, I think that inspiration is very awful. Are you trying to see that the fact that Joshua's friend, died is the reason why you have to come back to boxing? So I'm really trying to place hands on where, of course, that inspiration would have come from, or why he actually decided to be inspired, by that, as his time. But it's just a number Tyson Fury for me. We'll just look forward to see what he'll be able to do, in his fight against Mahmoudov and going forward in his career.
Exciting weekend in sports, and of course for us here on Sports Extraordinary, we'd like to take a break. We'll bring you more exciting stories, especially how Moroccan authorities have condemned, or let's say sentenced, 18 Senegalese and 1 French national to various terms in jail and fines as well. How could this have happened without even one Moroccan being part of the mayhem that took place at the African Cup of Nations Cup final that ended a few weeks ago? That will be a subject when we return from the break. Stay with us and expect just more coming from football. Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition, the weekend where the 9 states of the Niger Delta are gathered in Benin City for the 2nd edition of the Niger Delta Games. It promises to be a thriller from what we've seen of the opening ceremony, where 3,000 athletes will be competing in 17 sports. The Edo State government has been very magnanimous by offering 20 million naira for the first place state, while the second place state will be given a princely sum of 10 million naira. Third place will go home with 5 million naira. So it is games where a lot is at stake. This is different from what the sponsors of the tournament will give to the teams as well. But like we mentioned to you, let's say 9 states there, and of course they'll be competing in 17 sports. Top-notch facilities from what we have seen so far are there in Benin City. The opening ceremony was wow. The culture on display was really befitting of the Niger Delta states. Now let's look at the other aspect of the program, which has to do with latest reports coming in from Morocco. Yes, we understand 19 fans, soccer fans, have been sentenced to various jail terms and fines for their part at the mayhem that lasted for over 10 minutes or so, over 20 minutes at the finals of the African Cup of Nations. You were aware that at the stage it looks like Senegal was going to walk out of the final. They later came back. But we'll get to that in a short while. First, let's bring you some of the latest football stories making the rounds this weekend. And we'll first start with the Super Falcons. Kingsley, the Super Falcons, we understand, have announced, a head coach has announced a list of 25 players for the team's double-header friendlies against the team from Cameroon. The Indomitable Lionesses of Cameroon will have to take on their counterparts from Nigeria in a two-legged tie. What do you expect of this tie? And of course, looking at the list, is there any notable name that was dropped?
Yeah, Asisa Oshola made the list. I think if you look at it, she has not really been fantastic, especially with the Super Falcons of Nigeria. If we take a look at the last African Cup of Nations, she was not really that top-notch in terms of performance. I think she was actually dropped, and we'll see other players, of course, being picked, at this point in time. If we take a look at it, I think Coach Justin Madugu has really picked, some new names this time around to also see how he can, of course, replace the old legs, as there, especially like of Asisa Oshola that is even looking towards retiring from the team, as it stands. I think for me, it's actually a good friendly game against, Cameroon. Don't forget the WAFCON is just by the corner. It's just to get the girls, prepared to see how they can defend the title they won last time.
They play against the Lionesses of Cameroon. This is a good fixture. Ask me. It's a double-legged encounter.
Yeah.
You think this is a good way to prepare Nigerian girls for the task ahead?
Yeah, definitely. I think Cameroon, they are another strong side when it comes to female football, down here in Africa. So if we can get a better result or a better friendly game, against Cameroon, definitely we should be sure of putting up a mark, of course, in the African Cup of Nations. Don't forget, we are the defending champion in the Women African Cup of Nations. And as it stands now, Morocco, they are still the hosts of this one. They want to do everything to make sure they get so. Don't forget, we actually hosted them out in the final last time. So this time, they'll be very much prepared. The likes of South Africa, they're also there, also looking forward to make a mark this time around. So good preparation for me, for the Falcons will really help them to defend the title. Top
preparations for the Super Falcons up against their counterparts from Cameroon. That match, we understand, is double-legged on the 28th of February. Yeah. That will be the first leg. And of course, the second leg will be on the 3rd of March, all taking place in Cameroon. Let's hope that the Nigerian girls will be up to it. Of course, Ashley Pomtre will be coming for that encounter. Big names, captain of the side will be yes, Ajibade will be there as well. So it promises to be big. There's one name that is returning, Gift Monday, and I think this is deserving after our exploits out there in the United States. Sentencing and investigation that went on that led to 18 nationals fined various amounts, and with one French national as well. A lot of people are saying, in fact, football followers and watchers around the world are saying, how come no Moroccan was investigated for their role in what happened in that nation?
It's actually a big question, at this point in time, because when I take a look at the some of the things they actually accused the Senegalese fans.
Yeah, they were. In fact, we understand they were charged for 5 count.
So they said the pitch invasion and attempt, to enter restricted areas, fighting with security men, and as well train of, objects, damage of stadium properties, and all of that. I was like, we also saw the Moroccans also fighting with security men.
Yeah.
In fact, dragging towers from, players, and goalkeepers, even coming out, to fight. We also that in the final. As not the center referee blew the whistle for the end of the game, the Moroccans were fighting the Senegalese in the stand. We saw them even carrying chairs, in the stadium and throwing at the Senegalese fans. So why didn't they also fish out these Moroccans? And it's only the Senegalese fans that are suffering, all of this at this point in time. For me, I think this verdict, from them is actually somehow being biased, because you can't tell me that it was only the Senegalese fans that were destroying stadium properties, throwing objects. What about the Moroccans? Even their ball boys as well were busy dragging towels of the goalkeepers of their opponents, and all of that. So for me, I think there should really be a review. The Senegalese fans, they've really suffered a lot. I heard one of them was even talking about the fact that, they're even delaying his trial. Some of them have actually been on hunger strike, and all of that, since they don't even have close relative, around at this point in time. But I think at this point, the Senegalese government should not just be quiet, about this. I think they can maybe come in and see how, of course, to salvage this situation, because for someone to be in a land or in a country where you don't really have much people around and you are in prison, it actually takes a whole lot, at this point in time. So for me, I think it's time for the the government of Senegal should step up and see how they can also weigh in into the situation.
I'm not just talking about the government of Senegal stepping up, because we've seen that even in court, we saw some Senegalese diplomats in court during this sentencing. A lot of people are calling on CAF and FIFA to intervene in this what looks like a one-sided judgment. What role can FIFA and CAF play in this?
I think at this point, CAF can really come in. FIFA they can also come in and look into this at this point in time. It's just that, somehow these Senegalese fans, I don't even know if they have someone, of course, to speak for them. But I think at this point, it is actually pertinent that, CAF probably or FIFA, comes in and see how to also look into the matter critically. All right, you can actually, sentence someone in prison, for 1 year. Yes, of course, yes, they destroy things and all of that, but
yeah, talk about this, some properties destroyed. We understand for the listed properties up to $500,000 destroyed in the course of the do I say disturbances that almost mad that I find out. We understand about 11 of them will be paying about $550 each, and of course go to jail for a period of 1 year. And something interesting.
But this is bad.
Some of the culprits refused to even leave the dock. When the sentence was pronounced, they were so heartbroken that they couldn't. Like I said, one of them collapsed, and others refused to leave the dock, saying this was completely not fair in terms of the judgment. But it has been given, but they have on the right of appeal. Let's hope that the appeal will work, and I see that some of this sentence is reduced, because these fans they didn't bargain to spend 1 year in jail after coming to watch the Nations Cup final.
It's very painful. It's very, very painful and heartbroken at this point in time. You were even talking about appeal. Who and who is there for them at this point in time, able to stand in, to intercede, and all of that. And that's what I'm saying. It's even the government of Senegal really step up at this, point in time. It's not easy that you're in prison in a place that's not your country. It's actually a very, very difficult situation. They are saying that, okay, they are charging them for destroying stadium properties. If you look, even if you take a look at among those persons they even mentioned, some of them might be innocent, at the end of the day, but they just have picked them just to punish them, and all of that. For me, I think it's not good. Is this really fair when it comes to
because if you look at it in the judgment, when CAF did their own investigation, after the investigation they find both the Moroccan authorities and the Senegalese authorities, because it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
It wasn't only the Senegalese that we saw from video evidence at that Nations Cup final, but we were so surprised here that in their own judgment, it has to be only one-sided, and it's
very biased.
It looks very biased. So FIFA definitely should come in here. Like you were saying, the Senegalese already using their government, to reach out to see how this can be reviewed, especially with the appeal coming up. But then, football followers around the world are very, very perturbed and worried that this could come from a Senegalese court, a Moroccan court, in an incident that involved both parties.
But somehow as well, this can also go in maybe some way to affect Morocco, especially when they are maybe hosting tournaments. Some person might shy away from going, because sometimes if things like this happen, they want to, of course, hold you responsible, rather than also maybe looking at who and who that was properly, of course, involved in this thing. So for me, I think when it comes to do with the fans. This particular judgment doesn't really sit well, when it comes to do with football. It has a way of dampening the morale of people, even heading down to Morocco, maybe to watch, some certain tournaments like this.
And you think this could affect the bilateral relationship between these two countries, between Senegal and Morocco?
Maybe at this point in time, but and I think that is where, of course, CAF should come in to try to settle things amicably, because of people spending 1 year. These are people that have possibly wife or children, and they'll be out there, and their family, of course, are somewhere, crying and lamenting. It goes a whole long way of breaking them emotionally. So at this point in time, anything could happen. Senegal and Morocco might just be missing something at this point, and it might not really augur well for them going forward in terms of relationship.
Wow, talking about investigation too reminds me this weekend we saw that incident involving Vinicius Junior in Real Madrid encounter against their opponent at the weekend. That incident involving him dancing, at the corner flag, according to what do we call the other team now? Benfica. They are saying that was a provocative dance, and one of the players pretending, was seen to have made a racial remark, calling Vinicius Junior a monkey. Of course, that led to about a 10 minutes delay in that encounter. Now, this weekend, investigation has been done, by the Benfica, in fact, by UEFA, and UEFA has, and Prestini, the player from what's his club name now? Benfica has come out to say he didn't make a racial remark. He actually made an anti-gay slur, remark, and that he didn't pronounce the word monkey, mono in Spanish, as you say, right? It was an anti-gay slur, and so that is his defense before the UEFA authority. Do you think this is good enough from a player? Meanwhile, Kylian Mbappe said not only him, but some other Benfica players had it as many as 5 times when Brestini covered his mouth with his jersey, calling Vinicius Junior a monkey.
I think it's looking at it at this point in time, it should be properly investigated. Just like you mentioned, investigation, of course, is still being done at this point. So we don't really know what the man said. That's the thing. If he said monkey or putting up a anti-gay, this thing at this point in time, that's the thing. One thing about it, I think why it really accelerated is because Vinicius has always been a victim of racism. All right, he has always been a victim of racism. That's why the thing really, of course, amplified when he actually made that gesture by covering his mouth and saying that. And Vinicius took it upon himself and said, this man is actually, putting up a racism this thing against me and all of that. So for me, I think we'll just look at it, and probably I think UEFA are also on it at this point in time. Maybe at the end of the day, they might actually look for a means to really, of course, find out if he really made that pronouncement of calling Vinicius a monkey.
Well, let's go across to South America, and something cooking up out there with the Brazilian national team, and of course one of the best players, Neymar Jr. We understand he will be retiring from football, at the end of the season. Will the world be missing one of their brightest?
I think the world has already gotten enough of Neymar Jr. We're not seeing the best, of course, from him, as well. It's been a long time we saw Neymar put up a very impressive performance, of course, in a season, right? And I think from his days down there at Paris Saint-Germain, we didn't really see the best, from him. Went down to Saudi Arabia. I think that was where he even lost it all. I think he didn't even play throughout a particular season because of injury. Now went down to Brazil. Still yet.
Plays for Santos.
Santos, we're not seeing the best, from him as well. So I think the world will miss him, especially his fans. But did he really achieve so much? Are we going to say he has a successful career, after having the very best, display and couldn't win the Ballon d'Or? I think it's arguably at this point in time. But it is what it is. He has been a fantastic player. So if you call it a quit, I think so far so good. The world of football, I will still remember that there was a player called Neymar.
Neymar Jr. Plays for Santos now. Haven't gone back. He said he wants to retire at the end of the season. But this is a World Cup year. Do you expect to see him, in the colors of Brazil in the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico.
Yes, of course. This should be his last dance at the World Cup, and he should be looking forward to make an impressive performance, of course, with Brazil at this point in time. Now that they have a certain coach like Carlo Ancelotti, who has actually come out as well to even try to stabilize the team, of course, a bit. I think it's really been, of course, an impressive one for him. So I think this year it might be, of course, the last, for Neymar, especially the World Cup, and we look forward to see him, of course, putting up a very impressive performance.
Neymar Jr. expected to be part of the Brazilian squad going to the World Cup, and a World Cup here, maybe after the World Cup and the end of the season, playing for Santos. That's the club side of legendary Pelé. Then he could retire, because according to him, this is a very important year for him, and he's looking at retiring at the end of the year. But sometimes these players stay long. He's made quite a lot of money from football.
Yeah, quite a lot of money from football. Of course, don't forget that heavy signing from Paris Saint-Germain when they signed him from FC Barcelona. I think it was one of the highest signing as at that time, and then of course was actually paid very huge down there at PSG. And also don't forget also the huge money signing was sold down there from Saudi Arabia as well. So the man has made a lot of money when it comes to do with football. I just believe he has invested a lot now that he's talking about retirement, because we're always seeing these Brazilian players, whenever they retire they go broke, and I just hope that with what he has been able to achieve, he has done a lot of investment that will sustain him after football.
Because Neymar Jr. has played for some of the big clubs sides in the world. He played for Paris Saint-Germain, if you remember. He played for FC Barcelona before returning back to Brazil. And for the national team of Brazil, this is a phenomenal player, no doubt about it. He's played as many as 128 times for Brazil, and scoring, but for one goal, 80 goals in for Brazil national team. 79 goals is quite a number of return after 128 games.
Yeah, definitely, it's been an impressive one for Neymar in terms of performance, and goal scoring prowess. Don't forget, he has also won some titles, the Copa America as well, with them. So it's really been an exciting one. I think if you can crown things up, of course, with the World Cup, that, of course, you will see is a successful career for him when you take a look at all what, of course, he has achieved in the world of football.
Talking about crowning things up with the World Cup, Neymar Jr. has played already in 3 World Cups. If he gets to the United States of America in the next few weeks from now, that will be his 4th World Cup appearance, and that's quite a big one for the career of a football player that is just getting close to about 30, how many years now? Over 30 years of age. So I think he has really paid his dues when it comes to playing football at the highest level. Playing in 3 World Cups, going for the 4th one, playing as many as 128 times, scoring nearly 80 goals in the course of his international career, and several goals for both Paris Saint-Germain, FC Barcelona, and Santos. That's quite a big career statistics for Neymar Jr. We have to wrap up the program now, but we'll take you just one more story coming from England, and it has to do with the Premier League, where Bukayo Saka has been given a new 4-year contract, and will be earning as much as $300,000 per week. 7 days, he gets a paycheck of $300,000, no matter what happens. This is minus his match bonuses. That's quite a big one. I'm not too sure there's any other player in Arsenal that earns as much as $300,000 in 7 days.
Bukayo is the highest paid player.
£300,000. Really.
Yeah, he's the highest paid player, down there at Arsenal. I think the man has paid his dues. Don't forget, he's an academy product, from Arsenal. He has been able to build himself, down to this level. Even the coach, Mikel Arteta, really rely on him. And I believe with this, huge pay, he'll be motivated and not, of course, being pressured, to deliver, at the end of the day. We'll just look forward to see what comes up. Arsenal are still in the title race, no matter what, no matter how far they've dropped points. If Bukayo, of course, can also help them, of course, to get the title this time around, it will really be, of course, a huge one.
Is there any reason why Bukayo Saka should not be our sports extraordinaire for this weekend? Earning so much money in just a piece of 7 days, £300,000.
No reason at all. I think he really deserves being our sport extraordinary to this edition of the show.
Well, that will be it for this weekend. Definitely next weekend, a lot more will come your way by His grace. I'm sure something is cooking for Victor Osimhen. He's been asked to move to the Premiership in England. Maybe by the time we turn next weekend, they will have seen concrete steps being taken here. But it looks like when a legendary player wants you in yet another club side, then there's a lot coming. That's the way it starts in football, movements and movement. He's already achieved a lot in Turkey, and he thinks maybe he can make it as well in the Premier League in England. But that will be for next week, God willing. Until then, remember, peace and unity are clearly part of progress. Enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.